Canadians have Belgium when it comes to moving to Europe as a bit of a gateway. The U.S. men's national team, though, seems to have the championship. We've seen some moves of U.S. men's national team players moving over to the championship in recent weeks. Patrick Agyemang going to Derby, Damien Downs going to Southampton, George Campbell from CF Montreal rumored to be going to West Brom, Duncan McGuire almost going in the past, as well as Daryl Dike. But the CanMNT doesn't seem to really get players over to the championship in the same way. We've talked about the links between the U.S. men's national team players making a difference for how Canadian men's national team players can be treated when it comes to teams across Europe. What does Canada have to do to get in on that mix? Or is Belgium a good enough league to kind of have as your gateway to Europe, Brendan?
That's a good point. I mean, when was the last time you've spoken about Daryl Dike?
Right? I think he had two major Achilles injuries, so he is a bit of an anomaly in that regard.
But in the sense of that's genuinely someone that I forgot on this pathway that you're talking about. So Patrick Agyemang going to Derby, to me, that's surprising. If anything, maybe I would have thought of Birmingham for some American connection. So it's interesting that that's kind of become the pathway. I think that there's this general perception that the championship is far more physical than the Premier League, or physical in different ways, of course, and that American players stereotypically are just more physical and stronger specimens. This has always been the stereotype over the last 30 years. And maybe for what they lack in technicality, they make up for in athleticism, right? This is the big broad brush. So I kind of feel like that's part of it, because I don't think that there's that same stereotype applies to the perception of Canadian players, even though you could argue with this current crop of Canadian men's national team stars that they are equally as athletic in all of those categories that you would compare to their American counterparts. So it's interesting to see some of these moves. Tillman, for example, I kind of didn't know where he would go, but I also think that there's a familiarity with England that American players might prefer over going to the continent, and that may not be the case with Canadian players who, in general, I think aren't deterred by playing in a country with a foreign language, or certainly playing in a country where French is a prominent language. So I think that is a big difference between Canadian and American players, Alex.
Yeah, for sure. I think it's, there's benefits from a Canadian perspective as well. Just like not to put it as like a shot at American, but you're right. The importance of adapting to other cultures. Canadians seem to do that very well. That's just kind of part of the DNA. Mm-hmm. So I am a bit torn because I think Belgium's a great development spot. Like, it's a great way, like you mentioned, be dropped in a new culture, different style, different league. But the championship is such a great way to experience the rigors of a European league, one that just offers so much gateways. Like, I think from a Canadian perspective, what's frustrating is like you go to the championship, it's instant like market potential. Like, you immediately become known. You immediately become an asset. I mean, Ismail Kone went to Watford, and within 2 years, after joining for 8 million euros, is 12 million to Marseille. Like, I just think it elevates you in such a way that can be harder. And I do wonder for Canadians if there can be a gateway into some of those championships, because like they have all the boxes now. They're a top 30 national team, so visas are less of an issue than they were before. There's a lot more guys with European passports. Because for me, it's more the quality of Americans that are going, and not to take a shot at any of those guys, but Patrick Agyemang, good striker, but like it's a good striker, right? Like there's not great, it's not exceptional. George Campbell, like he's been very solid for CF Montreal, but he's not, maybe lit the world afoot, so to speak. You look at some of the Damien Downs, like he was playing in the second Bundesliga. He's one to watch. I just wonder, like, is there not a route for some of the Canadians, especially ones that are playing well in MLS that are in their early 20s? Like, you think of a Jason Russell-Rowe. Could he not be a kind of player that you're looking at to go to the championship and get that opportunity? It is something, because I think there's benefits for each player. It's different. Some players might need a Belgium because they're a bit more physical, but they're maybe technically they need to polish things up a bit. We've seen how that's really helped a player like Promise David, how quickly he's developed. But some guys do need a bit of a physical challenge. They do need like Russell Rowe's a perfect example because he is so technical. He's such a silky striker. I'd love to go see him tested in that physical league. I'd love to see Canadians, because the last one is there is market value. You can sign these Canadians for 5 million less and maybe resell them. Whereas Patrick Agyemang for 10 mil, that's another thing that really stands out, is like, where's the resale value on that? Where's is the American name that valuable for 10 million? I guess it is, and it shows maybe how undervalued some Canadian players are.
Lille paid 30 million for Jonathan David, and I felt as though that the chances of them selling him for 60, which they did not, were highly unlikely. So I think with Adjaman, this club's paid the premium now. Derby's paid this American premium now, and they're hoping that the next club will have to pay another premium, and maybe it's only 17 million in that case. But I think that he's someone that can do well in that league. I think that he's someone that I think Patrick Adjaman is someone that could crack a Premier League side, whether he becomes a Premier League regular and how high up the list. Were we talking about Brentford being interested in Tejan? Like, I think Tejan would struggle to become a regular at Brentford. Patrick Adjaman, I see him on a team maybe in the lower half of the Premier League table, someone fighting for relegation that might give him an opportunity. And Derby are fighting for promotion. So it seems like it's a good spot. You mentioned him, being a good MLS guy. Is he any more deserving of a European move than Tani Oluwaseyi?
So that's the question. That's why I throw that out, because Tani Oluwaseyi has been one of the best strikers in MLS. What's he up to now? Like 13, 14 goal contributions on Minnesota. That's where the question really comes to life, because they're similar age. They both went through college, similar striker profiles. You can't help but wonder. Yeah,
the thing with Adjaman to me is he's not good when he's under pressure and defensive pressure. I think, the pressure around the game and the mentality and all that, he's fine. But when he gets a defender close to him, he's useless. But he's great on those balls that Pep Biel would slide on through, or you get from Liel Abada. But other than running onto things, he's kind of terrible. And we saw that.
I can relate to that. That's how I'm described at men's league as well, my friend.
Back to goal's not for everyone.
And I just don't see how one Pochettino sees him as a starting striker for the U.S. men's national team when he doesn't have, the likes of Balogun and Pepe and Sargent maybe. But I don't see him as a better striker than Brian White. I think he gets the move because he's younger. But I also don't see him, necessarily doing well in the championship. And maybe that's a hot take that'll age as well as I don't care if Jonathan David scores goals for Lille went. But it just, I don't see him having that skill set in the same way that I would see Jason Russell-Rowe have that skill set. And I think Jason Russell-Rowe is a guy that should be closer to, if not in the Canadian men's national team picture, because he has more versatility. He can not only get onto those through balls that are played by a guy like Diego Rossi or Daniel Gazdag, but he has the ability to dribble. He actually has some, ability to hold up play or play in a two-striker system, whereas Adjaman is very one-dimensional in my mind. So I think a move like that for Russell Rowe would look good. Tani Oluwaseyi, we've seen how he can adapt to Minnesota's weird footballing style of 35% we're going to win 4-1. But can also play in a more possession-based style like Jesse Marsh has with the Canadian team. So I think a move like that would work for more dimensional players. But with Adjaman, I just don't see him having that success over in the championship, let alone the Premier League. That's why I was so shocked when you said that he could have success in the Premier League. Do you think, Brendan?
Yeah, I mean, hey, it's debatable. I think he's someone whose game has come on strong in a short period of time, who seems to have developed very quickly to earn minutes and earn caps. And so on that trajectory, I guess that's kind of how I was thinking. Is it fair to compare his development and trajectory to Moise Bombito? Maybe not, but it's debatable. And this move, I guess the first 2 months, this move, we'll see. There'll be a lot of American eyes and American opinions on it for sure.
For what it's worth, it does appear these championship sides are targeting physical attributes. If that makes sense. I'm looking right away at Damian Downs and Patrick Adjaman. Those are two big boys. George Campbell, he's a big boy for a center back. You look at Daryl DK, it's about as big as they come in terms of just an absolute unit of a human.
Just stereotype shopping. It's no different than transfer market. Who's a free agent? Oh, who's a big American? There we go.
Duncan McGuire, not as big of a guy, but an absolute speedster he was. That is something worth watching. That again, I guess it's clearly some sort of Canadian jealousy, and I guess we can preface it as such. It is fascinating that again, all you have to do is show that one physical standout attribute, and all of a sudden it opens these doors. Whereas a lot of these Canadian players, you can have a lot of those skills, like a Tani Oluwase, where you can, be big but also be quick and be decent on the ball. Jason Russell-Rowe, like you mentioned, Ali Ahmed's a great example. Like, what a unique physical specimen he is, and it just doesn't feel like those doors are there. So I don't know. I think it's just important to highlight, because that's one of the things we're hoping for after this World Cup, is that there's a world where Canadians, when based on their performances, can earn these sorts of moves. And I think we're starting to see that younger guys are getting moves to Europe, but it still feels like there's a bit of a lag that's still filling itself, I guess. And hopefully the next 12 months can change that.